We're back in the shop with the Audi. I've got it completely tore down and we have absolute carnage. I was actually right for once, and it did have a timing chain failure. But before we get to the carnage, and I want to show you guys everything that failed on it, let's go take a look at and see what I've done so far. And here is the current state. The front end is completely tore down. The difference between this car and that car is this one, I actually took the radiator support completely off. And the reason for that is it was broken and completely cracked in half on that side. So right now I'm actually gonna be on my way to the salvage yard to pick one up to replace that. Got a little pile of parts there, a couple of broken pieces like the headlight, and a couple of other things that were broken on the front end as well that we're gonna go and pick up. But as you can see, it's only been 1 day since I've uploaded the last video, and we've already got this thing completely tore down. I just got a notification that parts came in, so we are right on schedule to have this thing fixed within a couple of days. And I was completely right. The timing chain on this end failed completely and fell apart. It's actually pretty amazing how it completely failed, and I'll show you guys that here in a second. I wanted to talk about what my next plan of action is, because this is a little bit worse than I expected it to be. So as you guys know, these engines are direct injected. And if we take a peek inside of these cylinders where the valves are, they are absolutely filthy. I mean, that's probably the worst that I've seen. Let's see if I can get a good view there. Sorry, the lighting's not too good on this side of the shop. I'm debating whether to take the cylinder head off. I'll have to end up taking the turbo off, and that's just a lot more work than I really actually want to do this thing. But we're trying to do this on a budget and quick. We are going to reuse a lot of components. I'm mainly focusing on the timing on the back and on the front end, maybe a couple of hoses, the seals for the fuel injectors, all the associated gaskets with everything that we've removed. And that's pretty much it, because I've only planned to spend about $300 tops. That's with the front end repairs and the mechanical repairs. I don't want to be into this thing any more than $1,300 so that we can actually make a profit on this car. Let me know what you guys think. Would you guys take the time to take the head off, remove the valves, and clean everything correctly? Or should I just do a quick decarboning of the valves and send it on its way? All right, let's go look at the broken parts. There's quite a bit of stuff to unpack here. There is a lot of carnage that went on with this engine and what failed. And that's what I'm going to show you guys right now. There's quite a few things that are replaceable and other stuff that I'm going to have to try and figure out what we're going to do to fix. But we're going to start back here with the main failure, which is the rear timing chain. Here is the timing chain, and it has obviously snapped. When I took the timing chain cover off, it was literally just hanging there, and all of these pieces fell out of the back onto the floor. This is the tensioner. You have this piece which rides inside of here, if I can even get it in there anymore. Probably this way. That's the tensioner. This is the spring that is supposed to be inside of here, which is now bent out of shape. And there's supposed to be another little guide on the top here with a plastic piece, which here's part of it. I don't know where the rest of the stuff went. Here's another piece. I don't know what that goes to. Essentially, what happened is there's a little screen that goes back here, and it looks like the screen got sucked in, or there was some debris that got sucked into the screen. You can see that there. And it blocked the oil from getting through, so there was no lubrication. And then the tensioner failed, and you can see the chain actually wore a groove into this piece. And then it rode on the bottom of it. There's supposed to be a plastic piece under here, and I'll show you what a regular tensioner looks like. This is what it should look like. Here's ours. So that's what happens when you don't change your oil. Stuff just starts to fail. So I'm kind of worried now that there's obviously a lot of debris gone throughout the rest of the engine. You can just tell this thing wasn't maintained. Like, look at the inside of this thing. So I'm gonna have to disassemble all of this, take the VVT solenoid out, remove all of the passage screws, and clean everything out properly. I do have rings to replace for these. All right, now on to the next failure, which was the cam follower for the high pressure fuel pump. It's completely gone. You're supposed to replace these things, I don't know, every 10,000 miles or so. And then I found this lodged somewhere back there. I have no idea where this came from. All the sensors are basically there, so I think it's just left over from, I don't know. I really don't know. Here's our high pressure fuel pump. Since the follower wore out and failed, the high pressure fuel pump was riding on the cam. That could potentially be a bad sign. I hope the cam isn't worn too much to where this thing doesn't build enough fuel pressure. But I do have another fuel pressure or high pressure fuel pump, so I'm going to replace just this piece here. You can unbolt it, pop the other piece in, so we can fix that fairly easily. I think the pump is still good. We'll replace this seal up here, and I think that'll work perfectly fine. We got to clean this intake manifold. We'll clean these little flaps. We're going to clean the injectors and put new Teflon seals and seals up on top there, and we should be good as far as that goes. Now, I did discover something else about the engine, so let's go over there and take a look at what I just discovered. But you guys know me, and I can't help myself. And while I'm waiting for parts, I decided to take a look at the turbo, and it's leaking quite a bit of oil. And then I found out that it's an aftermarket turbocharger. So this turbocharger has been replaced at some point. This is not the stock one. And I looked up the company. I'll put up a screenshot of them. Stegen turbochargers. They have good reviews. This is an $800 turbo, so it's not cheap. But I'm concerned about all of the oil that I've seen in the intercoolers. I took the diverter valve out, and there was tons of oil in there. So I don't know. I'm almost tempted to take the turbocharger off and reseal it, replace all the internal seals, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. This is how it starts, and then I end up losing focus of what we're here to actually do. So I'm just going to clean it up. I'm going to remove all of the lines. I am going to replace the drain line because it's pinched at the bottom right there. Show you guys. It's got a pretty bad pinch on it. Those are pretty cheap, so I'll order that, but that's as far as I'm going to go with the turbo. I'm just going to clean it up. I'm going to throw new copper washers on there, and we'll call it a day on the turbo. Good progress. Parts are coming in. Tomorrow I should receive the rest of them, and then we'll start putting this whole thing back together again. One last thing to remove off the front end was the front timing cover that'll expose our timing belt. That way when I go to remove it, it's already out of the way. Now here I'm replacing, I don't know what you call these things. They're like little plastic O-rings, and they go inside of the rear timing cover. They're for the VVT solenoid, and trust me, you are going to want to replace these things because they do go bad constantly. They fall apart in pieces, and then they get ran through your oiling system and wreak havoc on a lot of other components. So definitely replace these. I went with OEM replacements. They were really cheap. I think like 20 bucks. I'm not sure. I'll put it up on the screen, but yeah. Make sure you replace these little plastic rings. Next, I replaced the pintle on the high pressure fuel pump. This is the old one. As you can see, it's ground down at the tip. I had an extra one lying around from another old high pressure fuel pump, and I replaced the pintle and I replaced the spring as well. That one obviously has a lot of miles on it, but you can see there is the nice fresh one with a new spring and a new O-ring as well. And since I was already working on the manifold, I replaced the intake manifold gasket as well. Next, I moved on to the turbo, and it was time to replace all the copper crush washers. As we've seen, the turbo was leaking oil pretty badly, but I think it had something to do with the kinked oil return line, which I did end up fixing. So I decided to replace them anyways. I was in there, I might as well do it while I have easy access to all of them. You can clearly tell the turbo coolant feed line has definitely been leaking. At some point there's quite a bit of buildup of coolant on there, and of course it's the wrong kind. It's green, almost bluish, so I don't know. So we're definitely going to replace those copper crush washers as well. Nice. So here I am installing the diverter valve that came with this Stegen turbocharger, but I ended up later on switching it out for an OEM Pierberg one that I had laying around that was left over. I'd rather go with OEM quality parts, just makes me feel better. I know that's a bit ironic considering we are fixing this car with Temu parts, but these are sensors and electrical components that I want to go with OEM parts. When it comes to hardware and metal components and like wear items, the Temu ones or eBay or Amazon obviously aren't going to last as long, but they're definitely going to work. The electrical on these kind of cars, they have to be OEM. Click. Now I'm installing the boost control valve, and of course, you already know, had an extra one lying around that was OEM, took the one that came with the Stegen turbo off, we popped this one in place. Click. Click. Since we are in the mood of replacing gaskets, I have leftovers from the last Audi job. And I figured we might as well swap this one out since we're doing all the turbo seals pretty much. All right, turbo refresh is done. The only thing I was not able to do was get the oil drain tube off because the bolts that are going into the turbo are stripped or rounded out. So that sucks, but I was able to bend it back into shape, so hopefully there won't be a blockage there anymore and we won't have any more leaks. So right here, I'm just marking the crank gear and the timing belt in correlation, so that way when I go to replace the timing belt, I can transfer the marks from the old belt to the new belt and everything can go back together exactly where it's supposed to be and I won't have any timing issues. You don't have to do it this way, but I like to do this because it makes it easier, especially if everything's together before it comes apart. I've used it all the time and it's always worked for me. And since the timing kit I bought came with a new water pump, I decided to replace it. It's old, it's the original one. We might as well do it. This thing was pretty stuck on there and I literally beat it until it broke. Broke that off. All right, let's try something different here. There it is. OEM water pump. Doesn't feel bad, honestly, but it's plastic, so look at that gasket. Disgusting. After taking the water pump out, I cleaned all of the surfaces and I installed the new one. And as you can see right there, it is the Mocha brand from eBay. It is the Chinese part. That's what we're going to be using, all Chinese parts. Here is the tensioner and all of the associated tensioner rollers. There's going to be a little bit more information on this tensioner later on in the video, as you will see. Then we moved on to replacing all of the gaskets on the oil filter and oil cooler housing, and I had to do some repairs internally to it because it was damaged. The filter that came out of it was filthy, disgusting. It had never been changed. And then here is the water outlet. The aluminum one, it's upgraded. The plastic one was rotted out, cracking and falling apart. So for 20 bucks, I figured this was a good little upgrade. Then we moved on to replacing this. If you can believe it, I got this cam plate at the salvage yard for $11 because this one was destroyed. There was no fixing it. I got the new one in place. I did repair the cams somewhat with sandpaper. It wasn't the prettiest, but it came out better than what they were. There's the new tensioner and new timing chain installed. Both of those are the Chinese parts, and it seemed to go pretty well. Everything lined up, everything was in time, and we were ready to move on to other stuff. Here's a quick little sneak peek of the valves that I had already cleaned. I did it kind of by hand, and I will show you guys the method that I use. They do sell kits that are really expensive to do this a lot easier with like walnut blasting and using a compressed air, but I didn't want to spend that much. The kits are like $300 or $400. Put it up on the screen and I'll show you guys later what I did to clean those. These are all the coolant hoses and coolant bypass tubes that sit underneath the intake manifold and right above the oil filter housing. Took my time to clean everything up just a little bit. Also clean where the hoses connect to the tubes because these things are literally glued in place at the factory. I don't know if that's what they do, but I like to add anaerobic sealant on those flanges where the hoses go on. Just creates a better seal, makes it last longer, and protects the rubber a little bit. Now with all these hoses replaced, everything cleaned up, hopefully we added some clean, leak-free miles to this Audi. Okay, so it is time to address the fuel injectors before we can put the intake manifold on, and I do the carbon deposit cleaning on the valves. We're going to replace all the seals on these, Teflon seals, and the seals on top, and of course, sticking with our theme of only Temu or China parts, I got this little kit, as you can see there, made in China, on Amazon. It was very cheap, and it comes with everything that we need. Had very good reviews, so that's why I went with this one. You can see in there, we got every single seal that we need. Now, in order to be able to do this the right way, you need one of these kits here, and this is a Teflon seal installation kit or GDI installation kit that you can get on Amazon as well. But I will be leaving links to all of this stuff in the video so you guys can go get this if you need it. Let me get this done, then we'll move on to something else. First, you start by putting the Teflon seal on the little brass pintle. This little pintle just helps stretch it over the tip of the fuel injector. Line it up on top of the injector, then grab your first brass ring, push it down, and it'll center it on that pintle, and get it stretched over it just enough so you can put on the next brass ring that's a little bit larger. This one pushes it down onto the fuel injector and then a little bit closer to it sitting in its groove. Now you grab the last brass collet. This one's gonna push it all the way down into its groove. And then you're gonna put it over the Teflon seal because it's gonna be kind of loose. As you'll see, you can actually spin it and it's not on there fully. But this last one, you push on and you twist it a little bit, let it sit there, and it'll compress it back to its normal shape, and you're done. You can see the old Teflon seals there, and we got the new O-rings on top of the injectors. These bad boys are ready to be installed and give us some leak-free miles. Well guys, it looks like China has failed us. I've been trying to get the tension set on this Chinese tensioner here that I got from eBay, and I think it's broken. So we're supposed to spin this thing. That little tab there is supposed to come all the way around and line up with that one right there at the bottom. But right when I get to about here, it stops. And then it just completely spins all the way around. That's gotta be the notch where it's supposed to line up. It won't line up. I think I'm just gonna have to order an OEM tensioner. I don't trust that thing. It's just not working. That answers our question. We really can't fix these things with Chinese parts. Like, look at this. The quality of this thing is horrible. It's just not going to work. And I don't want to take the chances of, you know, a cheap part grenading the entire engine after all this work I've done. So another delay. We're going to have to order that part and wait for it to come in, because this piece of shit's just not going to cut it. Well, I did spin it around, kind of set at where, I guess that's where the tension's supposed to be. I don't know. That Chinese tensioner's weird, man. I spun it around like 4 times and the lines, the marks all still lined up. It was still in time, no weird sounds, but yeah, no, I don't trust that. It's got to go. So we're going to get an OEM one. Shouldn't be much more. And I don't even think I can return that. So that's going to cut into our budget just a little bit. Well, I got the new tensioner installed and I went to set the tension, and what do you know? The notch lined up perfectly. I had no issues with the OEM one. And so sometimes you just can't cheap out. Sometimes you have to buy OEM parts. Well, there you have it. OEM tensioner, and the nipple is lined up where it's supposed to be. Perfect. Feel a little bit better. And to be honest, that's the old one that came off the engine. I don't want to waste any more time, and I'm not going to spend any more money. So it works. It's holding tension. We'll spin the motor around to make sure it's good, but I think it's going to be fine. And the last bit of cleaning left before we install the injectors and the intake manifold. I'm just using a little nylon brush to clean out the ports where the fuel injectors go. And then I'm going to clean out all of the carbon in the intake ports. After that, I follow it up with one of those oversized Q-tips, whatever you want to call those, detailing tool, and clean out the rest of the gunk. As you can see, it's pretty effective, and the valves are looking a lot better than before. I'm going to show you guys some of the stuff I use. You can get these nylon brushes in a pack at Harbor Freight for like $7. They also sell a huge bag of detailing Q-tips like these, cotton swabs. And then this brush comes in another kit, and the gum out carb and choke cleaner. That's the best cleaner compared to brake cleaner. You can get that at Walmart. Pretty effective way of cleaning if you ask me. After all the cleaning was done, it was finally time to start throwing all the rest of the parts on the engine so we can finally get this thing started and see if all of our Temu, eBay, Amazon, China stuff really actually is gonna work, and if the car is actually gonna run. I hope it turns out to be a decent car because it is so nice. It has such a nice interior. I cannot wait to drive this thing. After adding some anaerobic sealant, our vacuum pump is ready to go back into the cylinder head. Intake manifold going in, and it's a lot easier after you've done this like 50,000 times. Guys, you literally cannot make this stuff up. Everything was going very smoothly, almost to the point where it was kind of scary how well everything was going back together. And for some reason, I don't know why or what made me decide to look down in there. Maybe because I was tightening the fuel pump. You see that? The freaking rocker is not, it's like, what? How? How does this happen? All right, disaster averted. Everything is put back together. Unfortunately, the cam plate bolts, I think they've been removed and installed a few too many times. They would not torque. They are torque to yield, so they're probably overstretched. I did not want to keep tightening them because I was scared that I would have stripped it out. So those ones had that, the intake manifold as well, and so did the high pressure fuel pump. But we're doing this on a budget, so hopefully it just doesn't cause any major issues. This thing just needs some oil and we should be ready to crank it. Let's see what this thing sounds like. Oh, man. I forgot to tighten the Schrader valve right there. It was spitting gas everywhere. That's easy. Let me tighten that up real quick and we'll try this again. Don't have coolant in the car, so I really don't want it to run long in case it does start and the fuel is connected. So I'm assuming it is going to try and run. That is a really horrible sound. All right, well, that's strange. Our battery's dead. Oh man. Well, it wanted to crank and it kind of sounded all right, but our battery's dead, guys. I'm gonna have to take the battery out, throw it on the charger. All right, guys, battery is charged. I got everything kind of loosely hooked up. I did pull the fuel pump fuse. I don't want it to start. Let's crank it a few times and just see how it sounds, kind of help build oil pressure. And then if everything sounds good, we'll try and start it. If it starts, we'll button everything up, get it out on the road, and test drive it. Here we go. It started, yes, let's go. Obviously it started and I had the fuel pump fuse pulled and it started anyways, which is kind of a good sign. This thing actually wants to run. So let me button everything up and then we'll actually start it up. But it sounded pretty dang good. I'm excited, can't wait. All right guys, I've had the car running for about 15 minutes now. I'm letting the cooling system bleed out, get up to operating temperature, but so far it is running absolutely beautiful. There are no lights on the dash except for one. I think it's for the traction. So we need to turn the steering wheel lock to lock and it should take that light off once we start driving it. But it's running absolutely amazing. No leaks, no weird sounds. I'm gonna call this one a success. I'm gonna finish buttoning it up, putting the bumper on, headlights, and then we're gonna go to the car wash, clean it, and I'll get back to you guys, give you my final thoughts, and we'll go over the numbers on this car. I just took this thing to the car wash and it actually cleaned up pretty nice. Now the car isn't perfect. The brakes are really bad. The rotors need to be changed. The suspension feels great. Steering feels great. It does have a few blemishes like the cracked front bumper and grille. So we're gonna have to figure out something on that. But overall, this car is great. Relatively low miles for its year at 148,000. The AC is ice cold. The interior is super quiet. It's very comfortable to drive in. Good power. So it looks like our Temu parts were able to fix it and we're on to other things. So I'm not going to list it for sale yet. Once I do, once I sell it, we'll go over the numbers. So far I have about $300 into it. So if you guys like the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. Helps me out more than you know. And stay tuned. Next week we have a really nice car coming to the channel. One of my personal dream cars, a 90s Japanese sports car, turbocharged all-wheel drive wagon manual. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. I don't know why, guys, but I like to always keep, well, not really keep, but just kind of go over all the junk parts that I took off the car. Like there's the cam plate. Look at this thing. This is how they tried to repair it. They shoved a freaking copper tube in it. Which now that I think about it, I'm gonna take that. That's nice. Piece of copper tubing, keeping that. But I mean, there's just tons of stuff in here that came off of the car. Gaskets and hoses, and pulleys and water pumps. Look at this. See? That's why I changed that piece, but yeah. Alright guys, make sure you turn in next week because I'm telling you, you guys are really gonna like the next car. It is pretty clapped out, but it's gonna be a good one. All right, see you guys later. Peace.